of you, and I thank Professor Ram for this invitation. So let me go through our organization's journey, and through which I'll share some of what has happened to the family in this whole evolution of the last 4 decades. We are about a 42-year-old institution. We were founded 43 now, 1976. And I'll have to put a little bit on the field of work that we do. We are in eye care. About 37 million people are blind in the world. This is a moving goalpost. It keeps moving. The population gets older and new kids get added. So this is a moving goalpost. About 12 million people are blind in India. India has a higher preponderance for blindness. If a Caucasian person gets blind at 70 or 80 due to a cataract, Indians will get it in the 5th or 6th decade. So that's why our numbers are pretty large in spite of being a younger population. It is said that in a country like India, about 25 to 30% of the people need eye care. That means one eye examination every year. If you go to a European country like Germany or France or UK, you would need about 55 to 60% because the average age is much higher. Eye care kind of kicks in after about 40 because you need reading glasses and things like that. In the younger generation, you'll have about 6 to 7% of the kids who will have need for spectacles. After 60, eye care kind of becomes pretty much important every year to be taken care of. That's why in India you need about 25% of the population. That's a very big number. 1.4 billion people, you're talking about 25%, you're talking about 400 million people needing to visit an eye doctor. We are about 17,000 eye doctors in this country. So this is what Arvind did. Arvind did about 4.1 million outpatient examinations last year and did about close to 500,000 surgeries and little more than 500,000 spectacles. And 50% of this is free. So the structure of Arvind is a not-for-profit organization. We are a charitable trust. That's the structure. So we are probably a little different from the business holding. Nobody owns it, nobody gets a dividend, nobody gets a return on the investment. They get a salary and they are genuinely trustees of the organization. That's how this organization was founded. Started by Dr. Venkataswamy, who is my uncle. He started at the age of 58 after his retirement from the government service. That's when he started this organization. Started with about 11 beds in 1976. Today, we are in multiple locations, primarily covering a population of 100 million people. Tamil Nadu, parts of Kerala, parts of Andhra, and Pondicherry. So that's kind of the population that we cover. In that 100 million population, Arvind provides 45% of all eye care needs in terms of surgery. So that's the kind of penetration that we have, and it also puts a lot of responsibility on the organization so that you'll have to ensure that that 100 million people are seeing well and they are able to be productive in the society. So we have multiple models, tertiary, secondary, like any business would do. It's more a hub and spoke model. The hubs are the large tertiary, and the level of complexity that is handled keeps coming down. Primary centers being covering a population of 50 to 60,000 people, and that's how we work. We see now about, now it's a little older statistics, 13,000. We see about 16,000 patients a day now, perform about 1,500 surgeries every day. So it's also a logistical exercise that we need to do, apart from the surgery. How do you transport these patients? How do you get them, feed them? How do you work with them? All of that makes the organization work. We are about 5,200 employees all put together. Hospitals tend to be, our hospital tends to be in a structure where 10% of our workforce is ophthalmologists, eye doctors, and 60% are nurses and assistants, we call MLOPs, and the other 20-30% are the admin and the support staff. So my uncle, who was at the age of 58, founds the organization. And this is one statistics I wanted to show you. So Arvind does about 70% of what UK does, about not for 70%, but probably 60-65%. We do about 330,000 surgeries now. It costs about 1.6 billion pounds for UK to do this same quantum of work. And it costs about, now it's a little more than 13.8, maybe about 20-25 million pounds to do the same kind of work. Thank you. So I'm going to take this journey together, what the organization did and what the family did. So that's why I'm trying to do this. So Dr. V was this tremendous visionary. He had a track record. He was in the government service, which is a mandatory retirement age at that time was 58. So he retired and he wanted to continue this work. And government has a limitation. It says at 58, however good you are or efficient you are, your time comes to an end. So the family around him, he was a bachelor, so he was kind of the patriarch of the family. He brought all his siblings to where they were, of which about 4 of them were ophthalmologists. And my dad was a construction person and a finance person. So when he wanted to start, he said, I wanted to do both paying work and free work and develop a cross-subsidizing model. He didn't want to depend purely on donations, because at that stage, when he kind of went to raise some money, he didn't get a good response. So he said, I'm not going to go to the community and ask for money. I'm going to build a model which is going to sustain itself. They didn't have a choice. That's how things evolved. And that's what brought this organization to be very frugal in its approach in delivering eye care. So he's our founder. He passed away about 13 years ago. And the vision was high quality, high volume, compassionate eye care to all. To all made all the difference. That's where the free care comes. That's where the outreach program comes. All of that came from that. So initially when Dr. V had this great vision, the vision grew. It didn't happen one fine day in 1976. He started with one hospital in Madurai, and that kept growing. But he was global in his thinking. He had a tremendous network which was kind of helping him to see how these solutions were handled in other countries, how some of the innovations can be done very frugally. Arvind has not done anything new in eye surgery, but it has done a lot of innovation on how it can be delivered very frugally. And Dr. V was kind of epitomizing all of that. So Dr. V had a strong value system that said you'll have to give it free and you'll have to have a charitable trust. It's not a business that we are running. And he was also very keen observer of business. He said, on the delivery system, we should follow models like McDonald's or Burger King. Wherever in the world you go, they're able to give the same product with an entry-level person, a school dropout, and serve every day in and day out to all the customers they come. They use standardization, they use replicability, they kind of use the good supply chain. So he said if he can learn from all that model, he was obviously way ahead of his time. So his sister, my father is his younger brother, and his sister, his brother, 2 sisters and 1 brother, they kind of looked up to him. He was kind of the patriarch, and he didn't have anything that he wanted as a bachelor, and was not asking for anything. So it was kind of the first 20 years of this journey was purely the joy of building an organization and reaching out to more people. So that's how Arvind came. So one thing about Dr. V, I think it's very important for us in the organization that we realize who was Dr. V. I think that is a very important element on the kind of DNA that goes into the organization, because the quality of the organization is not the ingredients you put, it's how you put together the ingredients. That depends on the person who cooks a particular dish. So Dr. V had this, Dr. V owned the problem. Dr. V did not look at eye care as a business opportunity. This is not the market I'm going to build my business. He said, eye care is a problem. The community's problem is what I'm going to try and solve. So the whole approach was, what does the community need? How do we give it to the community? With a per capita income of $150 to $160 way back in 1976, the community needed 80% of care free. So that's how this whole generation of people came. A lot of sacrifice, a lot of humbling experiences in their journey. He was obviously far-sighted, as I said earlier, and all of them were very selfless, and they kind of led by example. You know, it was a family which was very tight-knit, 5 people doing this day in and day out, and doing it in Madurai. There's a big advantage when you're in a very small city, nobody notices you. They don't celebrate victory too soon. So that was very important, because that kind of allowed them to put a lot of roots very deep in. So when you're able to come to a larger city and get a little bit of recognition, your foundation is still very strong. You can go back to it and kind of gain the strength that one needs in running an organization. So this is what Dr. V did, a strong delivery system, value system, and innovation. What are the challenges that were faced by the founding and the core team? No proven model, scarcity in capital, manpower, working system, and age at which he started. I think age at which he started, I put it as a challenge, but actually we feel it's a strength, because at 58, you come into an organization as a coach. This is something which we are seeing in our next generation. When you come as a player, you are a novice, obviously, but you are also asking for too much too soon. That's what we find in our third and fourth generation. So we realize that in our field, when you come into the organization, most of them become doctors. So your skill is very important, and it's tested every time. You're a good surgeon or not, you don't have to tell. Your nurse who assists you will tell you. The security in the hospital will tell you whether you're a good doctor or not. So it's very important for you to prove every time that you do something. So in a way, that kind of splits the good ones versus the average ones. So the good ones continue to thrive, the average ones continue to pretty much remain where they are. That is a challenge that we have. How do we, because we don't have a financial system to reward them. We can only reward them by allowing them to grow within that ecosystem. So that's what we find as a challenge, is not everybody is the same. We are about 40 ophthalmologists in the family, all doing the same thing, out of about 500 ophthalmologists cumulatively in the organization. So we are about 10% of the, close to 10% of the ophthalmology. So that community knows if you are good or not, because they can easily see what you do. So people who thrive are the ones, as I said, are good in what they did. So 1976 to 90, more like a founder-driven organization, very mission-driven, and still it's a very mission-driven, that's the canvas on which we work, but it's also a strategic, mature organization, being 5,000 employees in multiple locations. You need all the structure that a traditional business would need to run the organization. So we always go after undiagnosed need and unmet need. That became a strategy. So this also helped the family. When you're kind of going after unmet need, you also have a lot of virgin areas that your younger people can go and work. So that was an opportunity. You can kind of give them testing grounds. Are they really good? Because you can become a good doctor, or you're also a good leader. Because these two things don't have to go together. A good clinician, a good surgical surgeon need not be a great people person and a great leader. So we are also able to judge what is that person's capacity. And we are able to kind of channelize them in that direction. The organization has grown over the decades to be able to channelize some of those capacities that was built over the years. I'm going to keep switching slides here. So vision centers are the primary level centers. This innovation came from one of the second generation family members. They said, we can't fill all the tertiary care centers with primary care problems. The primary care problem should be dealt in the community. So it kind of debottlenecked the larger tertiary care centers to do more meaningful work and be of use to people who really need that. And challenge was scarce resource, so we needed a lot of innovation. So several people contributed to this milieu of how this organization came into existence. And we are about a 90% women organization. In ophthalmology, 90% of all ophthalmologists in this country from 2000 onwards are all women. Men, for some reason, don't become ophthalmologists. A very small minority become ophthalmologists. And our workforce is about, all the nurses are obviously women in our context, and after school dropout, after they finish their schooling, they join us for a 2-year program and then they work with us. They pretty much do a lot of tasks. So there's one metric that we go after, keeping the productivity. So if you really look at this metric, this will, to do this volume, you have to be really good. You have to have very less complications. So this kind of helps us to filter the people, both in the family and outside the family. The first 3-4 years, you know what the mettle of that person, and then we can guide them. And there are a few people who have been in the family and said, I'm not fitting in here, I need to move out, I need to do something else. And that is fine, because we are not a business, nobody owns this, so they are welcome to move on and find another job and be happy about what they might have talent in another field, and then they do pretty well. And financial viability is a very important element. That's actually proving to be a challenge now, because in a pay-for-service ecosystem, financial viability is driven purely by efficiency, right? You're better, you're able to generate resource. Today we are moving into an insurance ecosystem. So the incentive to be frugal, the incentive to be efficient is kind of coming down. The mission needs are also coming down because the government is subsidizing all the insurance premiums. So you suddenly find an economy, a society like in the southern part of the country, where 80 to 85% of the people have access to third-party resources for funding healthcare, which is an insurance by the government or a private or an employee base. So that's kind of a challenge that we are facing, and we'll have to figure out how to go about doing this. Phase 2, leveraging scale, training, standardization. So these are all some of the things that we are going through as a family. One challenge that we are finding is people who are really entrepreneurial in the family don't even come into this. They don't fit in here. They feel stifled by what's being done. Too many people involved, too much of family, uncles, cousins, and aunts. It's only people who are driven to be in medicine, driven to do this, or people who are average, who don't fit in anywhere else, are the people who are today part of the organization at this stage. So we are also into manufacturing. We make intraocular lens, sutures, pharmaceutical. Again, when you kind of dig deeper, we went back and did certain things that we were consuming. So all this gave opportunities for more people. Like if there is a doctor who is very sharp, a couple of them, who wanted to do research, that was their passion. They wanted to dig deep into a gene and find out why this particular disease. So that's how our research center came. Somebody wanted to get into manufacturing of pharmaceutical products and lens. That's how this came. But finally, all of that, the canvas is eye care. Everything is woven into that canvas, but nothing beyond that. That is very clear. If you want to be part of Aravind Eye Care system, you have to be within eye care. If you don't want to be part of Aravind Eye Care system, the choice is yours. You can move out and do whatever you choose to do. So that's who we are as an organization. And as I said, this is my last slide, sometimes we see, now we recognize, sometimes we see when you do something free, you kind of always use an altruism hat to see it's free. We are looking at the society. But what we realize is the free is what gives the big kick, a big impetus for the DNA to be very viable. Because the free gives you community acceptance, gives you scale, gives you efficiency, gives you frugality, and gives you the moral authority to negotiate very strongly. Whenever you sit across the board to negotiate with somebody, it gives you a tremendous platform. The paying also gives you advantages. It gives you financial surplus, service quality, and access to technology. So this, I'll end with this quote of Dr. V. Intelligence and capabilities are not enough. There must be a joy of doing something beautiful. If the organization loses the joy of doing something beautiful, maybe the time for the organization is over. Let it die, and someone else will come and grow something over that. Thank you.